towns, their villages. It is a terrible exodus, but impossible to escape attack from the plains, which spray the roads thronged with soldiers and refugees with machine gun fire. People ask, where is the French Air Force? What are they doing? The French planes are fighting, but away up there, at an altitude of 15 or 20,000 feet, where no one sees them. One of their pilots, Captain Akar, is a leading ace. He has destroyed 16 German planes. He can testify that the sky wasn't empty.
It is a reproach I have often heard, and in my hospital bed at Grange Blanche, I could see around me people who were completely surprised that an airman had been around to be shot down. For the French, everything that flew was an enemy. One of my comrades, Captain Portalis, was hit above Moselle. He came down by parachute in the middle of some French troops who shot him. He had shouted to them that he was French. They shot him, even though he had a bullet in his leg. That's how it was. Anything in the air was Canadian or German or British. Never French.
Meanwhile, nearly 1,000 French fighters are making a stand against the Luftwaffe in an unequal contest. 1 against 3. 400 bombers and reconnaissance planes, obsolete machines, are massacred in the first days of the offensive. But the French fighters bring down almost 1,000 German planes. The cost is high, 700 planes lost and 200 pilots killed. Captain Akar himself was brought down in a dogfight.
I had disengaged to come back, to take up the attack again on the German bomber formation, when I was shot between the eyes. I lost consciousness, and then I woke up without really knowing what had happened to me. I couldn't see sky or earth or my instruments. I had jumped, but with the speed that I fell, my arms twisted around, and then with difficulty, after counting up to 10, I opened my parachute. I was falling very fast and was afraid it would tear. And in the midst of this, I remembered that between 5 and 6, I was looking for the parachute cord. And the next thing I knew, I'd landed in the bushes, which had broken my fall because the parachute had been damaged in spite of everything. The brave man who picked me up wrote later, we found the corpse of that officer in the bushes.
Did they manage to get the bullet out?
No, it's still there.
June the 11th. Complete collapse. Churchill comes to the Mouguet Chateau, close to Briare on the Loire, to meet the French government, who are moving from chateau to chateau. The atmosphere is depressed. General Weygand and Marshal Pétain paint a dark picture of the situation. The fight must be stopped, they say. That's the government's business, Paul Reynaud cuts in curtly and turns to Churchill. We haven't any more planes, he says. Send us all the RAF planes. Impossible, replies Churchill. We shall need them to defend England soon. Suggestions fall on deaf ears. Anthony Eden, then British Minister for War, is the only witness of the meeting still alive. In 1973, he was filmed by a French camera crew.
We had spoken for almost 3 hours without really getting anywhere, because we had already supplied all we had. It was explained that the British Army and the Air Force had been sent, and there was nothing more to send. And at the end, I remember, Churchill said what was going to happen if the need arose. He said, we are going to continue the war alone. You won't have any regrets, naturally. But that is what we want to do. And I remember slightly the faces of the three men opposite me. There was, at that moment, there were four, because General George had arrived during the discussion. But the three principals were there. Reynaud, who was inscrutable. Weygand was listening politely, but I believed was unconvinced. And then Pétain, who had an incredulous expression.
During dinner, Anthony Eden received confirmation of the division between the French.
At the moment when we were going to sit down, a tall chap came in, and it was de Gaulle. And Weygand said, turning towards him, perhaps you'd like to sit next to me. Weygand was answered by de Gaulle in a dry voice, I have instructions to sit next to the British Prime Minister. I thought that Weygand was not very happy about his answer. Pétain spoke above all about the destruction of the French towns. Naturally, I was most sympathetic about that, but he insisted, I think, that it was not only Abbeville and Amiens, but that other towns had been destroyed as well. And then I said to him, well, Monsieur le Maréchal, all that's true, but there's something worse than the destruction of towns. He replied, that's typical of the English, because you've never seen anything like it in your country. I replied, well, perhaps we shall this time.
The next day, Churchill and Eden prepare to leave for London, convinced that Marshal Pétain has decided to abandon the fight.
The next morning, when we were on the steps of the house, Churchill and I, Reynaud came to speak to us about his difficulties with Pétain. At that moment, Pétain came up the steps, and Reynaud said to us, I remember it well, he's looking well this morning. There must have been disastrous news.
June the 14th, at dawn, the Germans enter Paris. Paris, an open city. Empty Paris. At the head of the column was Feldwebel Max Buschenhofen.
Our entry into Paris was on June the 14th, 1940, by the Saint-Ouen Gate. We had followed the outside roads and the Wagram Avenue as far as the Arc de Triomphe.
And what were the reactions of the Parisians?
There wasn't any. There weren't many people in the streets. There were some people who made friendly signs to us. Others turned their backs. Most of the Parisians were behind the shutters of their windows.
50 yards from here, the great French surgeon, Professor Martel, shot himself through the head. Feldwebel Max Buschenhofen still doesn't believe he's here at the foot of the Arc de Triomphe. From the top of the Eiffel Tower, they contemplate Paris at their feet. Paris under the jackboot.
Le centre d'anti-victoire.
Generaloberst von Bock und General der Artillerie von Küchler nehmen im Vorbeimarsch ihre Truppen ab.
German newsreels proudly proclaim the occupation of Paris to the German people.
Place de la Concorde. Im Hintergrund rechts das Marineministerium. Der Invalidendom, in dem Napoleon I. beigesetzt ist. Paris ist in deutscher Hand.
Yes, Paris is in the hands of the Germans. After the assault troops, smart, fresh and happy, marched down the Champs-Élysées, the SS arrived and the Gestapo, who will install themselves the next day in the Avenue Foch. The Parisians are on the roads, but they haven't gone very far. They no longer know where to go. All the bridges over the Loire are blown up. Then, hungry, bruised and desperate, they lie down in the ditches.